Well, everyone, welcome back to another podcast. Today I've got a recurring guest. We talked with Charis last time when she was talking about her role as a coach, as a mom, as a CrossFit competitor, and we are so excited to have her back. Charis, for the people who haven't been able to hear you talk before, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited to be back. Thanks for inviting me. And I love talking about CrossFit, but I will be as unbiased as I possibly can. I did research on both sides. So, um, as far as who I am, I currently am a gym owner at CrossFit Liquid in Newport News. I have my level 2 and a master's in counseling.
All right.
So, hopefully, I'll be able to
Yeah.
kind of tie gym and counseling together today a little bit because in my
Yeah.
opinion, everything that we do, our emotions drive us to do things. So
hmm
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Yeah. I'm excited to dig into that. So I saw on your Instagram recently that you made the quarterfinals of the CrossFit Games. So fill us in. What does that mean, and what does that look like in terms of next steps after that?
Yeah. So I was shocked that I even made it to quarterfinals just because the last year with all the kids and everything, I haven't had to work
hmm
out. I haven't been able to work out as much as I was before. So that was really, really exciting for me. So how it works is you have in the CrossFit Games, this is the
hmm
open is the first step in the CrossFit Games, and then the top 10% of those in the open make it to quarterfinals. And
Okay.
then from quarterfinals, the top athletes from there go to semifinals, and then the top athletes from semifinals then move on to the games. So I made it to quarterfinals.
hmm
Did not didn't participate in it because I got injured, but that was
Uh,
my own fault.
oh, that's disappointing, but that's
It
a
was disappointing. It really was. It was like the day after the last open workout. I just tweaked my shoulder, and
oh
now
no.
being a mom where my limbs are a lot more than what I can do in the gym, I was like, it's not even worth it.
Uh-huh. Got it. Well, yeah. Um, so appropriately, we're talking about CrossFit today, and so the topic that we're delving into is CrossFit versus traditional strength training. And when I say traditional strength training, maybe you can refine that a little bit. But what I mean is, kind
Yeah.
of what you see typically people doing in the gym, lifting weights, maybe doing some compound movements, things like that. Um, I guess the first thing that I want to start with is that from the outside, a lot of the equipment looks very similar. So, what's the difference between the two?
That's a really good question. So, I would say the difference you're right that we have dumbbells can be used for CrossFit or they
hmm
can be used for traditional strength training.
hmm
Barbells, traditional strength training.
Sure.
There's bench press,
hmm
and we bench press in CrossFit, so
hmm
a lot of that's similar. So dumbbells, barbells, bench press, or just even the bench.
Yeah.
The weights that go on the barbells, like all that's the same. I would say that the biggest difference is um, with strength training, there's it that also opens an athlete up um, to do isolated movements.
Okay.
So, like you have the leg press machine. That's a really
hmm
very like traditional weight strength training movement.
Sure.
In CrossFit, we squat.
hmm
We do box squats. We wouldn't more freestanding functional movements versus muscle isolating
Okay.
movements.
So it sounds like with CrossFit, you're working on the entire movement of the body instead of just focusing on one muscle group at a time.
Right. Right. It's so CrossFit is more um of a full body. We say core to extremity
hmm
workout, what I mean by that is that it really, I mean, anything in CrossFit, any movement in CrossFit pretty much um, requires you to engage your core. So core to
Hmm.
extremity, I mean, like everything is engaged in order to complete the movement. Whereas in traditional strength training, and this can be a pro or a con depending on your goals, but in
Hmm.
traditional strength training, it would be, I want to make my quads bigger. Like I want my quads to be stronger. So let's leg press. Whereas
Okay.
CrossFit, it would say, somebody would be like, I want to get a bigger squat.
Hmm.
So you're going to go squat with a barbell to full depth. And where CrossFit's all about range of motion, full range of motion. So
Mm.
for a squat, that would be hip, knee extension
Hmm.
to squatting below parallel.
Okay. And I guess bigger picture, talk a little bit about the programming, um, because I think CrossFit kind of makes its name on these workouts that look really intense from the outside. So what's the difference in mindset when it comes to programming?
So the difference between CrossFit and traditional strength training in terms of programming is the goal. And
Okay.
so the goal of CrossFit is, I mean, this is like a very typical CrossFit answer, but the goal of CrossFit is constantly varied functional movement performed at relatively high intensities.
Hmm.
Whereas the goal of strength training is increasing muscle mass through resistance and weightlifting. For CrossFit, like what is the goal? It's a lot more specific.
Yeah.
Um, so we program towards those goals. In CrossFit, that looks like high intensity interval training,
Hmm.
using functional movements like squats, push ups, body weight movements, Olympic lifting, traditional weightlifting, even gymnastics, rowing, that kind of stuff. Um, Whereas, so the CrossFit training would incorporate all of those movements. Um, Never the same workout, really. I mean,
Hmm.
so that a workout, for instance, might be, I mean, let's say a rep scheme of 21-15-9 of uh, thrusters and chest to bar pull-ups, let's say. So you'd complete 21 reps of thrusters and then 21 reps of chest to bar pull-ups.
Hmm.
For those of you that don't know what a thruster is, it's holding the barbell in the front squat, squatting below parallel, and pushing the bar, exploding the bar overhead,
Hmm.
and then catching back in the front squat, going directly into the next rep. That movement is, I mean, the definition of a full body move. That would be the workout: 21-15-9 chest to bar and thrusters.
Hmm.
Um, but we would warm you up for that, and we would probably do a strength component as well. So we do have some in CrossFit. We have some traditional weightlifting. Um, actually incorporated into CrossFit. So different boxes do different things, but our box, we combine the two. So we
Hmm.
don't just do a high intensity workout or the WOD, which is what we call it.
Hmm.
We warm up, we do a strength portion, whether it's bench press, deadlift, or squatting, or, any one of the Olympic lifts. And then we'll move on to the workout, um, and then have some mobility. We never, we are, we're We never do the same workout once, and we are making sure that there's variability in the rep scheme,
Hmm.
in the time domain that we're utilizing, in the movement. So if we have, let's say, pistol squats in the workout one day, we're
Hmm.
probably not going to have pistol squats in the workout again for like another 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So there's just a lot of variability in how we train leg day,
Hmm.
and it's really never gonna be the same because, the more, I think one of CrossFit's big, I don't know, I would say, like, something people usually point out as a reason not to do CrossFit would be
Uh-huh.
high rep schemes lead to injury.
Sure.
Um, and that is true if one, you're not physically prepared to do the movement, and
Mhm.
two, you're doing too many of it to too much of the movement to more than your body's capable of.
Mhm.
So that being said, that's CrossFit's programming. That's kind of the
Yeah.
idea behind the program. Constantly varied, high
Mhm.
intensity, and we do incorporate some traditional weightlifting, depending on the box, but we do incorporate some traditional weightlifting
Mhm.
movements in there too. Like you even pointed out, there's a lot of similarities in even the equipment.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as traditional weightlifting goes, what the pros and cons of that is you can focus on a single muscle group and train that muscle group in a lot of different ways. There was a study done that compared CrossFit and traditional weightlifting, and
Mm.
the research kind of showed that people people who did traditional strength training, I believe, 2 to 3 times a week, according to, ASAM criteria,
Mhm.
for the weightlifters, and then under a CrossFit certified coach for the CrossFitters.
Uh-huh.
They completed these workouts 2 to 3 times a week. And what was really interesting about it is the traditional weightlifters, or strength trainers, they did better as far as performance in terms of raw strength.
Oh.
So, these were serious athletes that,
Mhm.
they were using for the study, which I liked. So these are kind of more experienced CrossFitters, more
Mhm.
experienced traditional strength trainers, but so the population that did this traditional strength training, they showed at the end of the study
Mhm.
more muscle mass. So
Okay.
their raw lifts were heavier, like your squat, your back squat, your bench
Mhm.
press. But CrossFitters, by a large margin, did better. But essentially, their aerobic capacity
Uh-huh.
was by a large margin better than that those who did strength training. Their explosiveness, their
Mhm.
ability to jump high,
Mhm.
um, that kind of thing, that was significantly improved. So yeah, I mean it. So as far as the programming, you're programming for different things, and the results are showing that there are benefits to both. So,
Mhm.
but as far as the programming of traditional strength training, if you follow ASAM criteria, it's a little easier to define
Yeah.
how to do it. Um, but eh, as far as the programming of traditional strength training, it's hard because, you know, when I think of traditional strength training, I think of people going to One Life
Mhm.
and getting their 1 hour workout in. Um, and they don't have a ton of structure, they don't have a ton of guidance.
Mhm.
So as far as like what that looks like, I don't know because it varies a lot from person to person, depending
Mhm.
on probably the majority of people. It varies a lot depending on what they go into. But if you're talking about meeting ASAM criteria, that would be focusing what their programming does is focus on 0 to 12 rep maxes,
Mhm.
on the big movements like bench press and squat and deadlift, that kind of thing, um, or other movements to support the specific muscle group growth.
Mhm.
Resting 3 to 6 minutes between the sets. So I guess conclusion, CrossFit's programming is a lot more structured.
Mhm.
At In general, just based on um users, I guess. So if
Mhm.
all users of CrossFit are gonna go into a box and this is what they're gonna find. They're gonna find a
Right.
warm up, a strength piece. They're gonna find a high intensity workout, and they're gonna find mobility exercises.
Mhm.
But with traditional strength training, it's more broad in what it what the goals are of it.
Hmm.
And as far as the users, um, it really depends on the person.
So to summarize, it sounds like strength training will increase strength to a greater degree than CrossFit, um, especially when rigorously applied, like in that study you talked about. But CrossFit has the benefits of more explosiveness, better endurance, and it sounds like more standardization too. If you're going to
Mhm.
a CrossFit box, like you said, you kind of know what to expect, and the average CrossFit participant will get a similar kind of
Exactly.
programming. Whereas because strength training is so individual, you could have a wide variation between what people are doing and what results they'll get.
Right. Right.
Okay. And if I remember right, your training and fitness journey wasn't always about CrossFit. So there might have been some time where you were doing some of the more traditional kind of strength training. Um, what was your experience like between the two, like when you transitioned over to CrossFit? And obviously, you've kind of stayed there in that territory. Um, yeah, what was the difference that kind of sold it for you?
So I was a personal trainer for traditional strength training for a company. It was so long ago I don't even remember the name. Um, but I did, like you said, traditional strength training. There was someone that I looked up to, and I um wanted to be like her. And this was in my history, and she was well, in my past, and she was very strong. And I just wanted to be strong. I wanted to be
Hmm.
capable of doing things. And so then I kind of, without talking to her, but I dabbled in more the strength
Uh huh.
portion. So without doing any research, I went down in my basement and I like grabbed a couple dumbbells, and I'm like doing bench press like I'd seen
Uh
on the
huh.
TV.
Yeah.
Trying to get a pull up, getting my chin as far as I could over the bar, so,
Uh huh.
whatever I could do, whatever motivation I could muster to actually
Hmm.
get down in the basement 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Yeah.
um but again, I was lacking guidance, which I really was craving,
Mm.
and guidance and structure. Actually, after the basement workouts for probably 2 years, um that's when I went to this local gym and wanted to be a personal trainer, kind of learned more about it,
Hmm.
gained a little bit more structure on rep schemes and different movements and things like
Sure.
that. I used the machines like the leg press, and
Hmm.
um worked at that kind of stuff. And I then tried a CrossFit workout. I went and tried a local one because they were having a free day, and I tried it, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And I loved that I was seeing progress even in doing one, and it made me feel
Wow.
very humbled,
I'm sure.
because I could barely finish the workout. So anyways, it just that, and the fact that I didn't have so one, it was helping me reach my goals that I didn't that, I just wanted to be strong and capable of doing stuff, not
Hmm.
feeling that weakness. But I also wanted the structure. Like I didn't want to have to
Hmm.
plan out my own workout every day. I wanted to do it with other people. So yeah, that was kind of my journey to CrossFit and the things that I did that led me up to it.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I'm hearing that like a lot of the pros and cons that you talked about earlier match up in your story, that there was not a lot of structure or teaching or community when you were just starting out with strength training, and you had to seek that
Right.
out yourself. But as you got into CrossFit, that was just all built into the whole system.
It was just built into the system.
Mm.
Yeah. It was part of it.
Yeah. And I think you were talking about earlier some of the potential mental health aspects of movement, and it seemed like you were starting to touch on that in terms of your own story. So let me uh, let you go into
Yeah.
what you were going to say about that.
Well, I guess so one of the things that really tied me in, that was really the hook, line, and sinker for CrossFit was the
Mhm.
community. Greg Glassman, I wrote it down because it's such a good quote, but Greg
Mhm.
Glassman, I don't know if it's appropriate to quote him anymore after what happened, but I think he had a lot of good things to offer the CrossFit community, so I'm gonna use him.
Sure.
He said, CrossFit is empirically driven, clinically tested, and community developed.
Hmm.
And that is just such a great summarization of, who is CrossFit because it's the community that drives it. And I read another study that compared functional training
Mhm.
to traditional strength training. So functional training is a little different from CrossFit. I mean, just a little bit. But essentially the study what the study looked at a bunch of different studies and kind of came up with the bottom line, but essentially there was no statistical difference in um, making a healthier person.
Hmm.
Yes, CrossFit helped people or the functional movements helped the older population
Mhm.
be able to still get off the ground and squat and things like that. But other than that, there was no statistical difference. So really what that tells me, even as a gym owner, is whatever you're doing, whatever the
Mhm.
workout is, whether it's functional training or whether it's CrossFit, because CrossFit's not for everybody,
Mhm.
you have to do it. A
Mhm.
consistency like that, number one, that is what I have seen to be the most effective ingredient for creating a healthy individual. And so, whether that's CrossFit or traditional strength training, whatever it is, what I'm getting from the research that I looked at, it kind of doesn't matter. Just do it. Be
Mhm.
consistent, 3 to 5 times a week. Um, Now, as far as the mental health aspect of it,
Mhm.
and this is what really tied me to CrossFit. As far as doing it every day, I need to be in community.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna work out alone 3 to 5 days a week, and that's just me. I'm not going to.
Mhm.
I would be very unfit if that's what I had to do. Um, so CrossFit really gives that piece of community
Mhm.
that a lot of other fitness venues are lacking, or even just approaches. That I mean, to me, the CrossFit community is the secret sauce of CrossFit
Mm.
because we're all doing the same thing. It's shared misery, which makes it less miserable. Baumeister and Leary did a lot of work on this too. But essentially, what they're saying is when there's shame involved, you can't, um, growth is stunted.
Mhm.
And there's when we talk about working out, when we talk about getting healthy, there's this big focus on what our bodies look like as a
Mhm.
result of working out. And that's a big cultural piece for America. And if a lot of us, and I speak personally, carry body shame or image shame, I mean, that's just an issue. That's an issue that
Mhm.
we have as females. I speaking for myself, I've had a lot of body image issues. Um, just feelings of inadequacy, and I was driven to fitness to feel more secure about myself. And I think a lot of people did the
Mhm.
same thing, do the same thing.
Sure.
So if you're trying to essentially overcome a sense of inadequacy in through fitness and you're doing it alone,
Mhm.
then that sense of shame can build
Mhm.
because I mean, like Brene Brown says, it takes two key ingredients for shame to grow: isolation and silence.
Mm.
And when you're doing it alone, those things can grow. And so that sense of inadequacy will just continue.
Mhm.
But and it did continue for me, um, feeling like whatever I did was never good enough.
Yeah.
Um, Feeling like I was always less than others.
Mhm.
Um, but in CrossFit, there's this there's a communal goal. There's um the people you work out with. There's just a culture of being okay with failing and being okay with not being where you want to be because that's just the norm. We're all working towards improving.
Mm,
And there's the culture of where you're at doesn't matter. It's where you're headed. And that's just true about life. It's where we're at is where we're at. And if you can't do a squat below parallel, that there's no shame in that. It doesn't reflect that you're incapable. It doesn't mean that you can never make advances forward. It
mhm,
doesn't even though a lot of people walking out of the gym, if they were not able to complete a movement, there's this sense of I'm not good enough. There's a sense of shame
mhm,
um that's really discouraging. And so that to me is the secret sauce of CrossFit is our community because it's okay to fail. In fact, it's normal to fail. And it's
mhm,
okay to not be where you want to be because nobody in the gym is where they want to be.
mm,
Because I mean that's why we're there. Or there's that piece of like the community is reaching towards a goal, so there's a
mhm,
understanding that like I'm not there and I'm moving forward. But there's also the piece to the culture in CrossFit that I just love.
yeah, I think it sounded
Isaiah?
like, as long as your body can do the movements, can do the work, it doesn't matter what it looks like.
Right. And that's the other piece of CrossFit that I was gonna mention. So it's that there's no ideal body type.
Hmm.
Um, when you come into CrossFit, every body type has a use, it has a function. And every body type is welcome in the gym.
Mhm,
So if you're that athlete that's coming in and you are very competitive and um, body composition is not your issue, then you have the community, behind you, supporting you to go faster, to lift heavier. But if you're a 9 to 5er who's just coming in to stay healthy, I mean, there's people behind you pushing you. Well,
mhm,
hey, I didn't see you last week. You gotta come 3 days a week, in order for this to be effective. Or, hey, what
mm,
was going on that you didn't come last week? Like, I missed you, There is no single person, there's no single body type that is ideal. And that's not really even the goal of CrossFit is body
right.
composition. The goal of CrossFit is learning about what is a healthy lifestyle? What does it look like to eat better? Hey, you're
Mhm,
doing it. Can we talk about that? And like I said, to me, that's the definition of fitness is engaging in something that's going to make you physically healthier, allow you to improve your quality of life. So, so for me, particularly, CrossFit is what did that. CrossFit helped
mhm,
me stay consistent. Um, CrossFit helped me overcome the shame that I had um, over body image.
mhm.
Um, and it helped connect me to a community.
All right, so to sum up, we've talked about some of the different pros and cons of traditional strength training versus CrossFit. If someone had a limited budget to just choose either between membership at their local CrossFit gym versus, like a rec center or a gym down the street, um, what questions might someone ask themselves to choose between one or the other?
The starting point might be finances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how much does the CrossFit down the street cost versus the rec center?
Mm-hmm.
Um, More likely than not, it's going to be the rec center that's cheaper.
Okay.
CrossFit tends to be, I would say, a lot more expensive than your rec center, averaging maybe starting at like $100 a month, and
Mm-hmm.
that's on the low end, very low end. So CrossFit definitely costs more.
Mm-hmm.
So coming from a budgetary standpoint, just ask yourself, how much can you spend? for me, it became worth it to pay
Mhm.
for what CrossFit, costs because you're getting coaching, which if you have a good coach, I mean, they're going to help you grow, the community helps you grow,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So you just, for me, it was gradual, but I got to a point where I said it was worth it. So, as far as somebody who's looking to start one or the other, I would just ask yourself, like, how much do you have to spend here? And if you want to do CrossFit, can you make lifestyle alterations? And then number two, it would be, if you're going to go to a gym that, like a rec center, do you have a plan? Um,
Mm.
I would really recommend to all the listeners to find something structured because, like I said before, if you are doing too much of the same thing, you're going to expose yourself to injury. If you're overbuilding one muscle group and underbuilding another, you're again going to expose yourself or to potential injury. So
Mhm.
definitely have a plan. If you go into the gym, in the more rec center route,
Mhm.
have a plan and be consistent. Same with if you do CrossFit. CrossFit's not going to give you the effects you're looking for if there's no consistency. So,
Mhm.
I would start with, um, finances and then, maybe try both out to
Mhm.
see which one you really like because maybe you're that person that says, "I just wanna put my headphones in and go
Mhm.
to the gym." But you really want good results and haven't been able to find them for yourself. Well, try CrossFit out and see if it really bothers you not to have your headphones in. So just find something that you can do every day, um,
Mhm.
and stick to it and find something that just fits your lifestyle because some moms don't have a family friendly gym in the area. Um, and so they have to work out at home. Well, there are plenty of things that you can do at home with just your
Mhm.
body weight to stay fit. So, um, really, it's the key here is just being consistent.